Good morning. My name is Mr. Kroenung. I work in campus ministry and I teach religion to sophomores and seniors. I hate interruptions. People might not guess this about me because I think I play it off pretty well, but I hate it when my conversations are interrupted. And I especially hate it when I'm in the middle of working on something, on a deadline or trying to get into a state of flow. I think it's because I naturally have a very difficult time staying focused. My own mind interrupts me enough. I don't need any extra help with that. With this knowledge, it's obvious I've made a terrible mistake. I've chosen the wrong lifestyle, and I've chosen the wrong line of work. When our 3 children were very young, I don't think my wife and I had a sustained conversation in over 5 years. She now has a strategy when our 10-year-old daughter, Hannah, interrupts us. She says firmly, "I'm in the middle of a sentence." It never really works on the first try. And this place is full of interruptions. While they are well-meaning, my students interrupt things all the time. When I play music in class, it's a matter of seconds before Alex Medea or Matthew Nepomuceno interrupt and request I put on their playlist, full of Shawn Mendes or Beach Bunny, respectively. In the story Damaris just read, Jesus is interrupted. And it's an interruption of something really important. He's on the way to the home of a young girl who's dying. Jesus can't even make the short walk across town without being interrupted. And he's interrupted again. He's talking to this woman about her faith when people come to tell him that the young girl died. He can't get a moment to finish a thought or even finish a sentence. So far in this school year, right here in these Commons, we've heard 2 other gospel stories of interruptions. On the first day of school, Miss Visser talked about the call of the apostles. Those fishermen were trying to get some work done when Jesus stopped them. Then last month, Mr. Marheineke talked to us about an incredible interruption. Jesus was teaching in a crowded home and a group of people tore the roof off and lowered a paralyzed man on a stretcher down in the middle of the room. These are just a couple of examples. Jesus is constantly interrupted in the Gospels. So what is God trying to say? I'm fortunate to have an office that's tucked away from what can be a wonderful, chaotic energy in the center of campus ministry. But it's not a guaranteed quiet zone. Every day, students eat lunch and take refuge outside my windows, right over there on the ground between the office and the lockers outside the 400 wing. A few weeks ago, there was one particular cold morning when 4 students were sitting on the cement, huddled together. The girl in the middle had her black hood tightly pulled around her head, and her friends were obviously comforting her. When she looked up, her bloodshot eyes clearly communicated she was having a terrible morning. I was on a phone call, but I put the other end on hold, opened the window, and asked the girls if they were okay. Of course, they replied, as most of us would, and said everything was fine. So I took a walk out to talk to them. I asked if they wanted to get off the concrete and sit in real chairs in campus ministry. They were surprised. We can do that? Yes. Yes. I let them help themselves to the jar of Starburst on Miss Visser's table and search for the best of the various mini candy bars in the bowl on Miss Burns' desk. I don't think the shelter or the candy solved any of their problems, but if you're going to have a bad day, you might as well have a snack. When we try to shut out or eliminate all interruptions, we give in to the illusion that we are in control. If the past few years have taught us anything, it's that there is so much to life that is beyond our control. We are not totally in charge. And that's a good thing. Our journey needs to be interrupted, ironically, to put us on the right path. We need interruptions to put us on the right path. The person who interrupts Jesus in this story is a woman. It was beyond rude for her to touch the cloak of a man who was not her husband in public. And it gets worse. She's hemorrhaging, she's bleeding. She's been bleeding for 12 years. This meant she was considered unclean according to the religious code of the day. That makes touching Jesus doubly bad. Because of her state, she couldn't worship with the community, and she was likely forced into isolation even from members of her own family. She had no place at the table. Our challenge this year is the same challenge faced by everyone in the Gospels. Be one. If we are to live up to this challenge, everyone needs a place at the table. When anyone in our community feels excluded or isolated, our community is, and should be, interrupted. It's our job to stop, listen, and invite them in. This school year, we've all experienced the ultimate interruption. The one that shatters any final sense of control we might have. And that's death. Mr. Smith, Mrs. Slevin, for those closest to these loved ones, everything stopped. Everything was interrupted. Our hopes and plans were dismantled. These moments, however, are central parts of time that can teach us how to live. Far from being interruptions in life, they are life itself. Why? Well, because when someone dies, we stop. We tell stories, we share meals. Our eyes are open to the fact that it's actually our schedules and our Google calendars that are the real interruptions in all of this, in the traditional sense of that word. Now, not every interruption is a miracle, but every miracle is an interruption. God breaking into the world in a new and surprising way. What does Jesus do in today's story? How does he respond to the interruptions? He stops. Later in Mark's gospel, he's on the road again, this time to Jerusalem, on the most important journey of his life, to save the world through dying and rising again. And a random poor person yells out and interrupts his journey. Jesus has important things to do, like all of us. He has places to go, just like all of us. He's on a very specific timeline. Everyone else there lining the road that day gets it and tells that man, Bartimaeus, to shut up. But Jesus stops. He listens to him. That's our challenge today and every day. This is not an easy task. We're not Jesus. But think for a moment, how do you typically respond to interruptions? It's natural for a lot of them to be irritating. They are for me too. But is that your default setting? If so, why? Can you see some of them as invitations to stop and listen, just as Jesus does over and over again? I know I'll mess up many times this year when I have my blinders on. You will too. So let's make a commitment to remind one another, as much as we can, to stop and listen. Because for us, interruptions may feel like inconveniences, but for God, they happen right on time. Thank you.